Joe Biden is trying to spend about $200 billion for universal taxpayer-funded daycare for all 3 and 4-year-olds in the United States. If enacted, it would affect more than 5 million children. Now, this has been mostly ignored as a not significant story. But the question of who raises your children may be the most significant question of all. It affects not simply your kids, but the future of the country. Is this a good idea? And what does the emphasis on this say about our priorities? J.D. Vance has thought a lot about this. He's, of course, the author of Hillbilly Elegy, and he joins us tonight. J.D. Vance, thanks so much for coming on. I don't know why this story is kind of brushed past by most people in favor of stories that are maybe less significant, but what does this tell you about what we care about as a country, or the Biden administration cares about?
Well, I think it tells you that they care much more about the preferences of our ruling class elites than they do about the preferences of middle class Americans. If you look at poll after poll, it shows that the ruling class family model is just different from what middle class Americans want. The ruling class is obsessed with their jobs. Even though they hate a lot of their jobs, they're obsessed with their credentials, and they want strangers to raise their kids. But middle class Americans, whatever their station in life, they want more time with their children, even if they're working. They want the opportunity to spend more time with their kids and not be forced to send them to daycare. And so what this policy really represents is an effort to subsidize the preference of our ruling class over the preference of our middle and working classes. And what's so troubling about this is it doesn't have to be like that. Tucker, you know that I'm a big fan of providing support to parents because I want there to be more children. I want American families to prosper. We could just do that, and then the parents could choose to send their kids to daycare if they wanted, but they could also choose to spend more time at home with their children, as most normal Americans actually want.
I love how they call it preschool, like it's an education initiative. It's daycare. Let's just say that out loud. Hire other people. So how do those numbers break down? I mean, the numbers that I have seen suggest that a lot of poor people, a lot of African Americans, a ton of Hispanic voters would prefer to have the option to raise their own kids when they're little. Why not make the pitch to them? Why aren't Republicans seizing this?
Well, I unfortunately think that too many Republicans are worried about the process of this. The natural establishment GOP response to this policy as well, this spends too much money. But the Democrats are always focused about spending money to accomplish their vision of society. What Republicans should be saying to the working class Hispanic, Black, and white Americans all across the board is we want you to have the flexibility to raise your children as you see fit. And we're willing to spend the resources to make that happen. The other thing that's really missed about this story, Tucker, which is completely bonkers given the last year, is that this gives more authority to the teachers' unions. If you want your children to be raised from the age of 2 to 18 by the people who have shut down the schools for the last year, then you should be supporting this universal benefit. If you actually want to give parents more power, there is another way to do this. We just have to have the power and, frankly, the courage as Republicans and conservatives to actually advocate for it.
And it's such a great point, but they're afraid because it's a culture war issue. No, it's like the only issue that matters. I hope you give them strength by your bravery in bringing up this topic and by being clear thinking about it. The great J.D. Vance, thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.